Welcome to Brilliantly British. My name is Lawrence and today I'm going to show you how to make chicken Pembroke. So as I show you how, please sit back, relax with a cup of tea in hand, putting those feet up too, and enjoy this episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Within the walls of Pembroke Lodge in Richmond Park, this fried chicken dish was a favourite of the second Countess of Dudley, which today will be remastered with a brilliantly British twist. In this episode, we'll be reviving this 110-year-old dish, which, take it from us, might just be one of the most elegant and flavoursome fried chicken dishes in existence. And as always, following the dish's preparation, you'll be tempted with a session of tasting at the end, with results that speak for themselves. So now, with the introductions made and your interest peaking, please allow me to introduce the ingredients to you. For today's Brilliantly British chicken Pembroke, you will need some chicken, some bacon. I've gone for some smoked bacon, some plain white flour, some eggs, some fresh or dry parsley, some bay leaves, fresh or dry tarragon, some cloves, carrots, celery, onion, a nice knobbly lemon, some rock hard stale bread, and you will need some white wine. And of course, this is fried chicken. After all, you will need a cooking fat of choice, followed by some salt and pepper to avoid the god-awful occurrence of bland food. And that, my friends, is all you will need for today's chicken Pembroke. But please, before you get started, before you do anything at all, switch on your kettle, brew yourself a nice cup of hot tea so that you can sip on that whilst you cook. To start this recipe, I began breaking down 2 whole chickens, down to the carcass, legs, breast, fillets, and wings. Then, onto a greased oven tray, I placed my segmented carcass pieces before proceeding by first skinning and then filleting my chicken legs, with the skin being placed to one side momentarily and the bones being placed on the nearby tray. You'll then want to repeat this step for all 4 of the chicken legs, and with that done, continue by skinning the chicken breast fillets, adding the skins to the pile sourced from the legs. The skins were then placed in the fridge for later. As for the wings, well, I stowed them away to be enjoyed as part of a separate dinner. Anyway, I digress. With all of the chicken bones now spread out on my tray, I place them in my oven from cold, roasting them until dark brown, as you'll see later on. So, with one thing out of the way, after a short and sweet tea break, I began the task of mincing my chicken meat to a fine and homogeneous consistency, which should be light work if you're in possession of a mincer. Then, with all of the mincing done, on a squeaky clean board, I weighed out my mince to determine the correct amount of salt before adding coarse black pepper, freshly chopped lemon zest, and dried tarragon, finishing by giving it all a very thorough mix. Once well combined on a lined baking sheet, first divide the mince into 6 or 8 for smaller individual portions before shaping into bars with the aid of a little water to prevent them from sticking to your hands. And then, with all of them formed, place your tray in your fridge while attending to the following steps. Turning our attention back to the roasting bones, which are now perfectly dark brown, I'll set them to one side for just a moment as we make some breadcrumbs, by simply blending my stale bread to a desired consistency, setting it aside for later on. Then, following a sip of tea, I'll blend onions, carrots, and celery to form a coarse paste, which I'll set to one side also for just a moment. Now, in a deep pot, or a wok in my case, I'll sprinkle in some peppercorns, followed by my roasted chicken bones and a deluge of cold water, which I'll begin to bring to a boil under a lid while I, in parallel, gently fry diced bacon and my chopped up chicken skins from earlier on over a medium-low heat in order to slowly render out the fat. Given that this step is a slow and steady process, I'd say the time spent waiting should include a cup of tea and some brilliantly British content in order to plan your next recipe, not forgetting, of course, to like and subscribe. Thank you. In time, the fat will have rendered out of the bacon and chicken skin, with both having crisped up, with plenty of frying fat now being available, at which point you'll want to recall your coarse onion, carrot and celery paste with a few bay leaves and a welcomed dash of white wine to deglaze the pan before covering the contents to cook until reduced in half by volume, cooked over a medium-low heat. With the bones having boiled for around 90 minutes, I then pass the contents through a colander to extract my rich stock before turning my attention to my pan, into which will go plain flour to form a roux before gradually adding my stock to the pan, adding more once the previous amount had been absorbed. With all of the stock added and with it being cooked until just beginning to bubble, the contents was then passed through a sieve, yielding the rich base for our chicken Pembroke, which should be finished with some chopped parsley before leaving to cool to a point comfortable enough to handle. Then, once sufficiently cool, in will go 3 egg yolks before mixing and setting aside for the following steps. Speaking of the following steps, prepare a flouring station, a wet station consisting of half of the Pembroke base and a breadcrumb station with a lined baking sheet nearby. And so with all of that prepared, proceed by gently flouring, wet coating and breadcrumbing your chicken, which may be tricky at first but with time does get easier, especially when, like me, you dig out a more suitable tray for coating. Nevertheless, in time, depending on your portioning, you'll either have 6 or 8 chicken Pembrokes ready for cooking. Speaking of the cooking, before proceeding with the chicken Pembrokes prepped, begin to preheat your oven, and then preferably in a wide cast iron pan, as they tend to be better at retaining heat. Heat up no more than a centimetre of oil to 180 degrees Celsius before frying on all 4 sides until brown for extra crispness, bearing in mind that the intention is to brown and crisp the Pembrokes without cooking them through, which will occur while they bake. And so with them all fried, bake them to cook them through, using the time to prepare accompaniments and crucially the Pembroke sauce. Taking some, if not all, of the rest of the rich Pembroke base, pour it into a pan and gradually heat over a medium-low heat, and if necessary with a dash of water to loosen slightly. The contents will need to be stirred constantly in order to prevent it from curdling, whilst being on the lookout for the 80-degree mark, at which point the sauce should be removed from your source of heat immediately, and you'll be pleased to know it'll at that point be ready to serve. Not long after, out from the oven came the cooked chicken Pembrokes, which I wasted no time slicing and serving with some buttery mash and my rich Pembroke sauce. And so now, with an elegant chicken Pembroke made and your appetites peaking, I think it's time for tasting, tasting, tasting. Are you ready? Are you steady? 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. Oh. This is so worth it. The first thing that hits you is the richness of the sauce. There is no way of describing this other than just to ask you in as polite a way as I can, please make this dish. It's rich. It's almost like a custard. The mash that I made off camera, it goes wonderfully with this. Don't be afraid as well to have fried chips with this. It'll go perfectly as well, I think. But focusing our attention now on the chicken Pembroke itself. It is tender, it is moist, it is juicy, it is well seasoned within. You've got the lovely lemon zest coming through that adds a freshness, a zing to it. And then outside, as if it's not amazing enough, you've got a lovely breadcrumb crust, which just adds a lovely appreciated texture, of course. So with all that being said, look, I hope I've sold this to you. I hope you are running out of the door, off to your local supermarket to get the ingredients, because it will be worth the effort. So please, 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 my dear viewers, make this dish, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for allowing me to show you how to make chicken Pembroke. Knowing that you loved this episode, don't forget to click on the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you don't miss any of our new releases. Tell everyone you know, and I mean everyone that you know, about the brilliantly British food on this channel, and follow us on all of the social media platforms that this channel is on, and I will see you next time.